Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited today to have speaker, author, and humorist Anna Lynn Thomas. Anna, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tony. I'm so excited to be here.
So, it's you've got a brand new book out, and we're going to jump into that a little bit. But I always like to kind of get kind of that macro viewpoint when I talk to somebody for the first time, and I like to start by asking this question: how would you describe your calling?
Oh, boy, that's really funny. That's a really interestingly worded question. So I can tell you how I came about to this place. Um,
Sure.
I was in the 6th grade, and I was in a really tiny little schoolhouse next to a nuclear power plant, which I think is hilarious. It was like The Simpsons, and I judge my mom so hard about it. I'm like, my mom is so healthy and holistic, and I'm like, you had me next to a nuclear power plant at school. What is this? She's like, it'd only be toxic if it blew up. But so I remember the teacher. Her name was Mrs. Abo. She asked us to write a short story, and it was the first
Mhm.
time I came alive. I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to write about? It was just, there was something in me that just couldn't wait to tell a story. And I wrote this story. It was called All Alone. And it was about a little girl with a drug addiction who lost all of her friends and family, which I think is hilarious because I grew up in a really solid family home. Where did I even get that as a topic? The only thing I can think of is that I was the baby of the family, and my parents uh, would let me watch TV with them. So like I was watching Dallas. I think Sue Ellen had an alcohol addiction. I don't know where I got the premise, but I remember I wrote this really dramatic story, and my teacher called me up to her desk and she said, "Anna, this is very, very good." So
Wow.
I went home that day and I kicked the door open and I said, "Family, listen up. I'm going to be a published author when I grow up." And I remember my mom was in the kitchen and she shut off the sink and she goes, "You are, babe?" And I go, yeah, I am." And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, okay, I I bet everybody feels that way. Like I bet everybody thinks that they're gonna do this huge epic thing, right? And my mom goes, "No, honey, I don't think hardly anybody feels that way." And so that was it. I just knew that I was going to be a writer since I was a little girl. And I life kind of goes on. And I remember instead of like I did a lot of writing in high school. And then when college hit, I took a different turn. I went into advertising. I was afraid I wouldn't make a lot of money if I went into writing. So I thought I'd be rich if I went into advertising. Found myself working at CSU Chico in Chico, California, loving that. And I started to get a master. I got my master's degree and was going to get my PhD in counseling. And I remember the director pulled me aside and he said, um, "Have you ever just thought about being a comedian?" And I was so offended. I was like, I haven't slept in 3 weeks writing my thesis, and now you want me to go down to like Joe's, open mic night? I was like, no, I need a career, but I went home and I just had this stirring of, I don't want to be a humor writer. I mean, I don't want to be a comedian, but I've always wanted to be a writer. And it was this pinnacle moment of this is something I want to pivot and I want to try and I want to go
Mhm.
for it. And the reason why I know that it's a calling and not something that is fun or because I want it for any sort of prestige or anything like that is because it doesn't leave me alone. It just
Wow.
doesn't leave me alone. And there is no option for me to quit, even if I don't have worldly success. It's just not an option. And it's just this feeling with God of that this is what I'm meant to do. I don't think in any way, shape, or form I'm meant to have high status and fame and all of that. Like I don't think God cares about that as much he cares about my relationship with him and my reliance on him. But
Mm.
at the same time, I 100% believe in the vision that he put into my heart and the fact that he won't let it go. There are times I've wanted to quit and it's just not an option. So that's how I would describe my calling.
I think that's beautifully stated. I think there are probably a lot of people who are like, um, I feel that. How would you recommend like someone getting started on a journey that maybe doesn't feel so conventional? Obviously, you left advertising to get into writing full time, and that had to been super scary. What was that process like for you to kind of take that first leap of faith? And if somebody's like, I feel like God's calling me to something big, how do I take that? How do I take that first step?
I hate to give this advice because it's bad advice, but I can only tell you what happened with us. My husband and we were living in California. We moved home to in where I'm at now in Omaha, Nebraska, to be closer to my family. And I was working on getting my PhD. I was applying to get into local schools here to get my PhD. And because at CSU Chico, I left advertising to go work on campus with students. So then I
Mm,
was in the education system there, and then that's where I got my master's degree. And so I blogs at the time were just getting really huge. We had some savings. Rob was going into school to be a nurse. And I said, I just feel like I need to give writing a try. Can I just take this time right now and just try and see what happens? And, like a total idiot, he said yes. I mean, he just was cool with it. We were broke. Oh, we were broke. But that's what I love about him because he's always really believed in me, and he's like, if that's what you feel like you're called to do, let's do it. And I started this website. I needed to build a platform for my writing. I knew I needed to do that. And about 3 months later, I went viral.
mm.
And I went mega viral with this essay I wrote about farting on the first date with my husband. I had no followers at the time, and it was a shock. My website was shut down for almost a week.
Wow.
It was one of these crazy experiences, and I remember thinking at the time, like, "Wow, I'm better than I thought I was." I just can't believe. I mean, I knew I was going to be good at this, but I didn't know I was going to be this good at it. 3 months. And I joke about this because I do some speaking now, and I do a talk about being in the liminal space, which is that transitional period between a dream and a dream being realized, and how uncertain
Yeah.
and terrible it is, and how we always usually run back to our comfort zone. And at that time, I thought that that was it. And really, what it was breadcrumbs. It
Mm.
and it was God's way of saying, keep walking this way, don't quit, don't get distracted, but you've got a lot of work to do. If you even think I'm going to be elevating you, right? And so there was, I essentially feel like God was thinking, if you want me to answer your prayer, then we've got some work to do on your character. We've got some work to do on your faith. We've got some work to do on your talent. We've got some work to do on all of these character areas of my life. And then it took about a decade. It took about a decade after that story of just writing and getting better and doing everything I could to get this book published.
Uh, I'm curious about the going viral process. I've heard a lot of different stories about how kind of overwhelming and kind of weird that is. What did you learn about yourself in this like really fast viral moment? And then since then you've obviously written more and you've continued to grind it out. But what was that initial like? I mean, obviously there's a little bit of confidence building there, but what else about the all of a sudden everyone's looking at you in a different way kind of moment?
Well, it has scary aspects to it, but if we want to talk about spiritually, um, thank God that wasn't. Thank God he saved me from that moment being the it moment because I
Yeah.
was not ready for that attention. I wasn't ready spiritually or emotionally for fame. My husband and I were freshly married. If that would have like taken me off to a book deal and lots of money and lots of influence, there is no way. I really don't think I think I would have pulled away from God. I would have had one of
Mm,
those superficial, um, oh, I'm a Christian, but I would have been so in the world. And because that's kind of my personality. Like, my personality is like, ambitious and loves it and let's have a good time. And I it can take you away from God so fast
Yeah.
because it whips you up into culture and it whips you up into the praise and adoration of other people. And it causes you to believe a lot of the things that they're saying. And your identity starts to get rooted in your ability to make people laugh or this story or this caricature that going viral makes you, rather than making sure that your identity is in Christ. And so I would say that it's a tough spot, and I wouldn't wish it on yourself until you're ready.
Hmm. How was the work process in that kind of in between, right? Like, so you know that it wasn't the end, but then you've kind of committed to doing a lot of self work, and obviously marriage work comes by being married and just
Yeah,
spending more time there. um,
yeah.
what were some of the like key moments in your story that were like, man, that has really shaped me as I've become a writer or you know, a blogger, humorist, you know, how was that work kind of done? If somebody's thinking like, oh man, I need to do some internal work too, where should they start?
So you have to make a commitment to being good. One thing about the internet right now is that you can really get famous for nothing and you can get
Hmm.
famous or popular for no talent whatsoever. And I knew I didn't want to be a 15 minutes of fame writer. I wanted to bring integrity and excellence into my craft. And so instead of chasing the likes and the follows and all of that, which will really make you just pull yourself away from yourself, instead of being like, what is this thing that God wants me to write and put out in the world? You start to be like, what's going to make the people like this the most and share it? And that's a real trap that you can get into. And so writing and being committed to writing was what I had to focus on. I just had to continue to focus on. I have a good friend who said, you've got to protect, a good friend and mentor who said, you've always got to protect the goose that lays the golden egg. Because I was
Mm,
constantly chasing Facebook and Instagram and how do I do this and how do I do that to build up my platform while abandoning the one most precious thing that God wanted me to do, which is to serve people and make them laugh through my writing. So that is something that I have to remind myself all the time. Right now, we're marketing the book, and I'm thinking about marketing and numbers and business and all of these things that are stressful, that suck the creativity right out of me. And I have to remind myself to protect the goose that lays the golden egg, protect my writing, set aside that writing time, and get better. Another thing, if I would have sold a book when the fart story went viral, or gotten a book deal, because a lot of agents and publishers will just jump on someone who's gone viral for videos or whatever else, and they'll just get them a ghostwriter. If I would have gotten a book deal at that point, it would have been crap. I just wasn't
yeah.
that good of a writer yet. I really needed to practice and get good at it. And I think that when God gives you a calling, we have an obligation to bring that calling integrity and an excellence the best we can. Not perfection at all, but to show up and just do the very best we can and give honor to it because it's important.
How do you do you have any daily disciplines as it when it comes to writing? Are you like okay every day because you're still putting out good content into the internet writing wise? You have a Substack newsletter and some of that content you're still putting out on a regular basis, which by the way is very rare, right? Like blogs feel like they're fewer and fewer far between, and I know you're podcasting too, but how do you stay sharp writing wise?
I'm I'm so into Substack right now and I just started because it's bringing me back to my roots of
Yeah.
writing, and it's rallying people instead of people rallying around some like little joke that I say about like the other day I got pinged on Facebook for this. I said I have to. I said that I was going to the bathroom, and right when I looked down, a spider came up from under the seat and got on top of the seat. So I was just about to sit on him, and I was like, "Now I have to burn the whole house down and start over." And then they
Mhm.
like, I got flagged for that, and I was like, "You guys." Uh, but my point is that sometimes people are really into the flash, quick joke, right? And
Yeah.
not so much the writing. And so Substack brings me back to the base of writing and telling a story. I'd love to tell you that I spend time every day writing at a particular time. That is my goal. I don't always meet it. But if
Yeah.
I sit down and I just write anything, content seems to just flow. I can take a piece from this and build off of it to give to the audience. But that's always the hardest part, especially when I'm in book writing mode. I'm like, what do you people want from me? I've just written a book. I don't have anything more to say to you. Leave me alone. Go read something else. Meanwhile, nobody even cares or is paying attention. They don't know what I'm doing. But I feel that pressure. Like they're just all on their phones, like, what's Anna going to say next? It better make me laugh. And so, but the goal is to at least do 1 to 3 hours a day. If you were to do 3 hours a day, I could have a finished book probably every 4 months, which is
Wow.
amazing to think about if we would just
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Do you find pressure to be funny? Is that a real, like, I've never been I mean, I think I'm funny. I'm the only one that thinks I'm funny. When I preach, sometimes I love good dad jokes or bad dad jokes. Actually, they're the same.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But do you find pressure to be funny? I'm curious about this mantle as like a humorist or comedian, writer, kind of storyteller. Like, um, what's that? What's that like?
There is a pressure, yes. Um, my audience is used to me. My books have serious themes in them. It's not just like an SNL skit all the way through. I do get pretty real and raw, so they're fairly used to that from me. Um, but you do feel like there is a pressure to entertain people all the time and entertain them in the way they want to be entertained.
Hmm.
And especially when you see other people or platforms succeeding by scratching that itch for people online, there is a pressure for me to do it and to do that and perform. And so one of the things that I always have to just just bring myself back is just who I am in Christ, who he made me to be, and what is something on my heart that I can share today. And my own personality will always get the joke in. It's how I communicate and it's who I am. So
Right.
that part's not hard, but that is something that I had to let go of. And when I first started to reveal myself as a more serious writer, I think I lost a lot of I mean, I came out as a believer. A lot of people were like, when did this website become religious? It's like the more you expose yourself, you're going to get rid of people who were just there for the laugh. And that's good.
It
Let them
turns out they
go.
were all Christians anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, like, so in this latest resource, I'm not ready for this. It's what I kind of call sneaky Jesus. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's not like overtly like, hey, I'm gonna beat you to death with the Bible verses. Although sometimes those books are needed too. How do you intertwine your faith and your platform? I mean, how do you know the right balance?
You're asking such really good questions that I just really got off the phone with my agent today. And we were talking a lot about this, really dreaming up book three. And I consider myself to be a bridge.
Mm.
And the thing is that I have pressure on the Christian side to be overtly, deeply Christian. Funny
Yeah.
Christian, but it's Christian. And then I feel pressure on this other side to be like, please don't. I mean, it's good you like Jesus, but let's not talk about it. Just entertain me and make me laugh. The
Yeah.
middle ground there is that I just be who I am. And my faith is a huge part of who I am, but I'm not called to, at least right now, be a spiritual teacher, a pastor. I'm not the next Christine Kane. That isn't my calling. Sometimes I'm like, that looks amazing, but that
Yeah.
isn't my
Right.
calling. And so I think God is using me, at least right now, as more of a bridge of someone who is working out their faith, who's telling the truth, who's making people laugh, who's saying things that are real and raw that might make some of the more deeply conservative Christians a little nervous, but that also leads other people who may be agnostic or struggling in their faith to be like, oh, I can just be a person. I can just be a
Mm.
human being. And if this person who is making me laugh, but also going through these things and overcoming and struggling and doing all of this. If her faith is what's getting her through, I wonder if there's something to this. And so I think that that's where I'm at right now. But if God tells me in a year or two that He wants me to write a devotional, I'll do it. I'll just follow the breadcrumbs.
Do you, I love the title of this. I'm not ready for this, because I think it kind of matches what a lot of us feel.
Hmm.
How did you decide that this is the project that God was calling you next? You mentioned a minute ago that you were talking to your agent. What's that discernment process like? Yes, I should actually start writing a book uh, about not being prepared and pushing through and those kind of things, or I should write a devotional, or like
Right.
how do you kind of discern what God's leading you to next?
It's so usually I write down a list of stories that I really want to tell, and then I try to see if there's a theme. And I found that through a big theme of what I was going through at the time is not being ready. So I was telling you earlier, I got cast for this TV show. I can't talk a whole bunch about it until it airs, if it even airs, which don't even get me started. That makes me so sad. I don't I think I'm on season 2. My God, how did you do? We'll see. But I just this not being ready for that. Who's ready? And I made the joke actually. The original title that I wanted was "I'm not ready to go sleeveless" because when women in general, like when spring hits, we're like, "Oh, great! I've got to expose these bat wings. I'm not ready for summer. I mean, I'm not ready for. I'm still wearing a cardigan. The sun can't be out yet. I mean, we're never ready for summer, for summer clothes. We're never ready for any of that stuff." And so that was initially my first joke. And then I wasn't ready for the show because I bought these like really cute blazers, but they were too tight. But I was positive I was going to lose like, I don't know, 80 pounds before the show, obviously. I didn't lose any. I was like stress eating all the way up. So I had a tight blazer on. I'm just never ready. I'm just never ready. And it was one of those things that I wasn't ready for my kid to start kindergarten. I mean, I didn't have any emails. I didn't know where I even register her. I mean, I'm always in this position of not being ready for something. And I think it's a common human experience. So we were talking about book 3, and I'm thinking imposter syndrome. This I have 2 books. One came out in September and then one just came out now. And I am in this
Yeah,
just
you are cranking them out, by the way.
seriously. And it was really important to me that I improve too. I didn't want to be one of those writers that just pumps them out and it just gets crap because they're under pressure. And I do book 2 is so much better than book 1. So thank God for that. And book 1's amazing too. I don't want to discount book 1, but that was my biggest
Sure.
fear, is that I was going to get rushed into being just a book factory and it was just going to start to decline in its quality, and that wasn't the case. But we're talking about imposter syndrome and all of these doubts that start to come in, and looking at how your sales are doing and the pressure you get from the publishing industry, and there's fears around every corner, and there are times where you just feel like you're faking it. I'm just faking
Mm.
it. And so there are so many funny things that I know everybody really experiences. And there's so many stories I can tell even through this process of writing books. And you know, people think that I wrote this book and that it's huge and that I've got like tons and tons of money, and then my husband and I were in this difficult like patch and I could barely buy her like a bridal shower gift. And I was like, I'm supposed to be this famous rich author and I can't even get her a bridal gift. I'm crying about it. I mean, it's stuff like that that I think it's human stuff. And so that's kind of why we were thinking that would be a really great angle to take, is just that imposter syndrome of, am I faking it? I mean, sometimes you almost feel like you're faking it as a Christian. Like,
Yeah.
well, who am I to be writing this? I've written little devotionals before for other little smaller publications, and it's just this constant thing where you just got to go back to not who you are as a writer, but who you are in God and in Christ, and what your identity is with Him, and how easy it is with God when we just get to walk with Him and identify ourselves with Him rather than the culture or success or our ambitions. And it's just a constant little learning lesson that I have to recalibrate myself to quite often. I'm embarrassed to say, maybe every day.
I mean, I don't know. I think daily surrender is probably a good thing, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
how, how do you know when a story is fully baked for public consumption, right? Like one of the things they tell us in seminary is like preach through scars, not through wounds, kind of thing. And like,
Yeah,
um, how do you know when it's like, okay, I can joke about this kind of uh I mean, most of your stories are personal. They're all personal,
right.
right? Like they're, like how do you know when they're ready to be poked fun at?
You've touched on something that I think is very dysfunctional about our current social media culture is that people are talking through their wounds and not their scars.
Mm,
And so it's almost like people who are really suffering and kind of bleeding are leading people who are suffering and bleeding, and then a weird kind of codependency sort of happens. I've just started to figure this out, and it's burdened my heart a little bit because we want that dopamine hit of I'm suffering right now. Well, if I just tell everybody my suffering, then they're all going to rally and I'm going to get all these likes and these comments and the support and I'm going to get that dopamine hit that'll help me. Rather than this is maybe a time that we should be privately spending with God right now and really just healing with him. Um that's the marker for me is when I'm ready to laugh about it and
mm,
when I feel like I'm on the other side in the sense that it's healed in a particular way. I don't really tend. I like to write about while it's happening, but I don't put it out for public consumption necessarily. Um, because I do test a lot of my chapters with my audience just to see if they like certain topics or if certain things are really funny to them. But that's a really great point. And I think David Sedaris, he's not a Christian writer by any stretch, but he's one of my favorite writers in terms of his talent and the way he writes. And he says that everything is funny eventually. And I think it is so true. And it's one thing where that's a big aspect of my writing, and my first book will laugh about this someday, is learning to keep a sense of humor, to not take life so seriously, and to vet out where the humor is. Even something that my husband and I will do is like sometimes we'll go back and laugh at the way we acted in a fight, like the stuff we said. Like like one time I got real mad at my husband. I was like, "Don't get it twisted." He's like, like he made fun of me. He's like, "Who are you, P Diddy? What do you mean don't get it twisted?" Just being able to go back and just don't get it twisted. Who knows what I was even mad about. Being able to go back and poke fun at ourselves and have a sense of humor about ourselves, I think, is a tremendous gift for you to have and to not let go. I
mm.
think if you lose your peace and you lose your sense of humor, you're giving away the top two things that God gives us to get through. So that's a long way of answering that question. But I will say that once I start feeling like I can laugh at something again, I'm ready to write about it.
That's good. I don't know if you've ever seen the memes where it's like, if you live in the preacher's household, everything can and will be used for a sermon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
how do you how do you manage? Because I would imagine in the world that you live in, you're such a great storyteller. Um, Everything is probably you see everything through the lens of, man, that could be a great story. If not now,
Right.
maybe eventually, right? How does that play out in your marriage? And I know your kids are still a little bit young, but like if you think about your family dynamic, how do you know? How do you and Rob kind of navigate that together on like what goes out and what stays in?
As I grow as a writer, I look at everything like a story, which is not very fun for my family because they're like, oh no, is this going in something?
Right.
Rob is chill. He's like, he doesn't take it seriously. I know the line of when I'm sharing too much that's precious to him that I would never violate that trust of his, but he's game. He doesn't even care if he looks bad. One time I wrote a joke and people started to like trash on him and I felt so bad. I was like, "Do you want me to take it down?" He's like, "What do I care what those weirdos think?" I mean, he doesn't so I don't we he pretty much trusts me. But everything is game. I'll start to realize like this is a really funny story. There was in I'm not ready for this, the chapter Come On Over, my brother was serving us all this spaghetti dinner. We're Sicilian. He wanted to make our family sauce and have us over for dinner. And he was like an hour late. And we had the church hangries.
Yeah.
11:30 in church service. I don't know if it's the devil or what, but all I can think about is food. I'm like, I just think about hamburger, fries. I mean, we were starving. And my mom wanted to put out this like veggie tray for us to snack on while the sauce was getting ready. And my brother was like, do not get stuffed. He's like, I don't want you guys to eat too much. The sauce is coming. Please, like, save your appetites. I was like, please, it's a cracker and cheese. I ate so many crackers and cheese. I was bloated before it was done. And I remember like panicking that I was stuffed. And I was like, Mom, I'm stuffed. And I had a real terror. And she was legitimately disappointed in me. She's like, you know how hard your brother's been working. How could you do this? You know? And immediately I was like, oh my God, this is a chapter in a story. I mean, so I look at all of these little things as easily something that I can Rob went grocery shopping with me yesterday. Huge mistake. I go grocery shopping on my own. I get a coffee. I make it an experience. Okay. I go to Whole
Sure. Yeah.
Foods. I want ambiance. I want it to look like the Garden of Eden when the
It's really
doors
just a
open.
retreat. It's not grocery
It's a,
shopping. It's a half day retreat.
it's a, that's it. You get it. And so here I brought Rob. I knew it was going to be a mistake. The whole time I can tell he's like, how long is she going to look at this zucchini? Like, pick one and let's roll. I mean, he had no patience for how long I was observing the lettuce. And
Mm.
anyway, he started to really pressure me at the end. So he was like, is that it? Can we check out? Can we check out? I was like, excuse me. No, I haven't even gotten to aisle 11 yet. Hold your jets and be quiet. And the woman checked us out and she goes, well, how, did you find everything okay? And I was like, well, I brought my husband and it was pure hell. And I was just like, I'm going to write about that. It's hilarious. I mean, and everybody related. So many women related to bringing their husbands or even kids. And it's just a mistake. Kids will just start
Mm.
throwing stuff into the
Yeah,
cart.
that's no bueno.
Yeah, exactly. Can we have this? Can we have this? So there's so much humor in just day-to-day life.
So I think you should write a marriage book next, just so you know. It's my gut feeling.
Yeah,
I
you
I
think
think,
so?
and you should have Rob put Rob's take at the end of every chapter.
Like
Because
how he
I would
experienced it.
love, I would love to hear Rob's take, like his version of this, even if it's not funny. I think it would be so funny because I feel like the contrast between you two is so broad. It would be amazing.
That's really good. That's really good. I'm gonna write that down. You're right, because if he was just like, actually, that's not at all how it happened. Thank you.
Right.
He did pop in one time on a post I had. He's not on Facebook anymore, but there was one time he popped in and he was like, it did not happen this way. And the people loved it. I mean, they were laughing so hard. So that's a really good idea. I love that.
Look, you guys write a marriage book and you could go around and do marriage retreats. This would be amazing. You'd be amazing at
Yeah, they'd be like, is this helping me? Sounds like you guys are really dysfunctional and weird. And I'd be like, listen,
it. Right?
we're still married. What do you want from us? It works
It's called
somehow.
empathy, people. We're here together.
Yeah, exactly. This is a team effort. Exactly.
This one is strictly for me. I don't know if anyone's going to find any value in it, but as somebody who tells a lot of stories, how do you how do you remember them? I can't, like, it's like for me when I'm writing. So there was a season of my life where I was preaching every weekend. I was a pastor of a local church, and so I'm cranking out 6 pages every week for 50
Mm-hmm.
weeks a year, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like eventually, like how many times can I tell the story about my daughter and how crazy she is? Like how do you
Yeah.
remember? How do you remember the stories? How do you keep track of them? How do you categorize? This is a little like insider baseball, so to speak, but I'm dying to know how somebody who tells as many stories as you do remembers them all.
I forget a lot of them. A lot of writers will keep, they'll talk in their notes on their phone, or they keep, like Anne Lamott will keep cards in her back pocket with a pen. For me, whenever I like sit down to write a book, I just go through things that I remember. And some
Mm,
stories or snippets are so small that I can't make it into a chapter, but my chapters go all over the place. I mean, I don't just stick like I'm going to tell you the story, the end. I weave it into a bigger, sometimes I weave the past into future stories. Um, but it's really, what do I remember? Because when we remember something, it matters. Um, and that's why there's parts about, I'm not ready for this, like the llama lady, growing up in that schoolhouse, and these snippets that I have, like when my teacher, um, she said, everybody be quiet, and the next person to talk or raise their hand has to put their name on the board. And I wasn't listening. So I raised my hand and I put my name on the board. Crushed. I was devastated. And she had to bring me into the back room and I was crying. And then I tried to get out of it. I was like, can I erase my name now? She's like, no. And then she also would have her give her back massages.
Whoa, that would
I
definitely get canceled today. That's
I
no
know.
that's no good.
I say this in the book. I'm like, she would be arrested today for this. Truly, it was the 80s and it really was innocent. Like we were just like grandkids who she just was given a quarter
Yeah.
to rubber back. It was that innocent. But could you imagine if that happened today? And we ate it up. I think it's because we got like a Werther's original at the end. She would be like grading papers and we were in line to do it like weirdos. And I remember I was just
Mm.
like, I wanted her to feel refreshed. I wanted to be teacher's pet. These things, like, why did I remember that? Why did that stick out to me? There's a reason why we remember a lot of things most of the time, because there's an
Yeah.
emotion that got evoked that was maybe new. And so, like, being getting in trouble with my teacher when I really thought I was like her favorite all time. How could she possibly betray me? Like that was the first time I experienced that, right? And so those always stick out to me, and I write that down. I want to put that in a story somewhere, and I wait until I'm writing about something where that would fit. And the thing that happens that make, like, because of Facebook and stuff like that, I'll just write about it that day. So when Rob and I got back from the grocery store, I was laughing about it, and I was like, I just went home and I just wrote it and put it on Facebook. It's not in a book or anything. It was just something that I wrote on Facebook. So sometimes I just write about it right away and then get it off my plate.
That's super helpful for someone who's always looking for a way to I have Evernote, and I have so many folders in Evernote that I use that sometimes I can't find the folder that I'm looking for. I was like, "Man, I feel like I wrote a note about that somewhere." And
Yeah.
Evernote's got great searchability, but if you speak in generalities or you like you just put down something so that you would remember it, and then I forget why I wrote it that way so that to remember it. So it's just I just think I could be better.
I'm like that with jokes. Like I'll think of a joke that I want to maybe make into a meme or something. Those I forget all the time. I mean, they're just gone before I can even especially if they're like late at night, I'll think of something. But when it comes to the stories, yep, I just make a list of like it's not a Word document. I actually use Scrivener, and Scrivener lets you have all of these folders. And so I just put all
Okay.
of these folders that have those stories in them. And there's still tons that I want to tell. That's why I feel like I've got tons of books. I mean, I've got a chapter called the baptism that didn't make it into this book, where me, my brother, and my sister, my sister's 10 years older, my brother's 5 years older, and we got baptized. And it's the way, it's just hilarious. And I didn't get that into this book. So I just write it down like this, the baptism. That's a hilarious story to tell people, stuff like that. And so that's just how I do it.
I love it. I love your whole vibe with it, and I just think it's really a lot of fun. And it's sneaky Jesus. I love the term that you used, bridge. I think that that's the world probably could use some more bridges and definitely less walls. So, thank you for that. My podcast family loves to pray, and
Yeah.
so as this book kind of gets into the wild, how can we be praying for it? Like, what's the prayer, the rally cry prayer as we think about Annalyn Thomas and I'm not ready for this, and as it goes out there into the world?
Thank you so much for that. That really means a lot to me, and to know that you guys are praying for me is just absolutely huge. I feel like right now, and I've been feeling like this with women of my generation, you know, we're having there's a little bit of a mental health crisis. Women are
Mm,
experiencing anxiety. Everybody's experiencing anxiety. Our kids are. Women are experiencing an anxiety and loneliness that is pretty unprecedented. Um, and it really breaks my heart. And everybody's going to the wrong place for it, right? I just
yeah.
want, so my vision is I just want people to join me in laughing, Join me in not taking life so seriously. Join me in finding hope. When you laugh really, really hard at something, you feel hopeful afterwards. That's why they
Mm,
tell people who have cancer patients to watch funny movies while they're in chemo and while they're recovering. There is a healing to laughing. And it is such a thing on my heart where I'm going to be trying to donate a lot of my books to chemo centers where they're actively getting chemo, to have like a book that they can read while they're getting chemo, to new mothers while they're in the hospital. I just want to share this laughter and this hope um, so badly that I could just cry if I thought about it. So if you
mm.
could just pray for that God blesses the work of my hands in this respect, that He elevates that message. I am praying hard for a revival, and I want to be a part of it so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm just um, so just be praying that this book gets into as many hands as God allows, and that it just it spreads, and that laughter and hope spreads in a time that feels kind of hopeless.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, amen. Amen. We'll pray for that for sure. Okay, I have one more question for you, but before I ask it, where is the best place to learn all the things about you and where God is working in you and through you? Where's the kind of the home base for Anna Lynn Thomas?
There's my website, annalynnthomas.com. I'm right now on Substack. Please come subscribe and follow me. You're going to absolutely love it. It is annalynnthomas.substack.com. My biggest audience is on Facebook. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, which is also Anna Lynn Thomas, just put me in there. You'll find me in all of those places. Yeah, give me a pity like on Instagram. I am so bad at it. Okay, give me so if you just feel sorry for me, even if you don't have an Instagram account, please make one and follow me. Okay, it's bad over there, but yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm
I
easy to
love it.
find.
It's so good. We'll link to all that in the show notes. Last question I always love to ask people. It's an advice question, and I'm going to ask you to give yourself one piece of advice, except I get to name the kind of the time in your life when you get to give it. And I'd like you to sit down in front of um, Anna the day before your blog goes viral.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the day before your life is getting ready to shift in pretty crazy ways, and you realize that there's a pretty big world out there for you and for your writing and the way that God's going to use you. If you could sit down in front of her and sit knee to knee and hold her hands and look her in the eyes and tell her one thing, what are you going to tell her?
I would say, I know that you want this so bad, but you've got to be patient. You've got to trust God. And there are going to be times when you're going to want to give up. And there are going to be times where you're going to feel like you failed. And there are going to be times where you think that God's not going to answer your prayers. And this is the time, girl, where you need to just relax. Just relax. God's got you. You're good. Keep writing and have fun. It'll all be okay. And trust me, you're going to laugh about it someday. That sounds like I scripted that. I wasn't even prepared. Was that
That was
good?
so good.
That was
No,
so
nobody knows
good.
that question. Nobody
I
knows
mean,
that question. Right.
I'm just
It's
saying.
so
I
good.
even got my book in there at the end, and I think it rhymed. That was
It,
good.
it was that's really well done. See, you should go back. That's what you should put on Instagram. You should just like
That's what I need to do. That's what I need
yeah,
to do. Yeah. In
that's
all
so good.
seriousness, though, I could cry. I could just weep at this poor girl who just was so working so hard and just so afraid it wasn't going to happen. I still feel that way now. I work so hard and I think it isn't going to happen. And I wish that especially when you're really an ambitious person and that's a part of your
Yeah.
temperament, just the constant surrender, that daily surrender of I am going to enjoy my life, I'm going to enjoy the work of my hands, and I'm going to trust God with the outcome and enjoy my life. It's the most important thing.
That's good. It's good. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so much for your
you.
generosity today. It was so much fun. I love hearing your story, and we're praying with you and as this book goes out into the world.
Thank you so much, Tony. You had such thoughtful, wonderful questions. I had a wonderful time. Invite me back, will you? Please. I'm
Yeah,
available.
come on. Let's
Yeah.
go. Oh,
Okay.
gosh, we almost forgot to mention, go subscribe to Anna's podcast.
Yes, yes, it's not that serious. And I
It's
do have one starting very soon with Boonmi Laditan. She's like the voice behind the honest toddler. She's hysterical. She's huge. You guys probably already know who she is. We're going to start a podcast very soon, so just keep your eye out for that. Follow me at annalindon.thomas.com and you'll see it when it pops up.